Hello and welcome to the Underhive. We are back with some more How to Command the Death Guard. In this series, we're going to take a look at every aspect of the Death Guard, so whether you're looking to get more out of your army, or you're thinking of joining Nurgle's feculent festivities, then there's something here for you. In this episode, we're going to continue our thought experiment into how we might glow up the Death Guard plague companies in light of the Votann, at least leaks at this stage, but they are expected to come out at a fairly high power level, and if that's the new baseline power level, then many factions would certainly need some love to bring them up to that tier. However, even if that's not the case, the 7 plague companies aren't particularly balanced internally anyway, and I think bringing them all up a little bit in line with the 3rd plague company wouldn't be bad for the game. Now, the 5th plague company that we're talking about today is actually the reason why I wanted to start this mini-series, because I think there's a lot we could do here to make them a little bit more potent and effective in light of new rules that have come from both the Demons Codex and that will likely be coming from the Votann Codex. So let's dive in and take a look at the 5th plague company. The stratagem available to the Poxmongers, the Bilious Blood Rush, really only affects Plague Burst Crawlers, and I don't think that's a particularly bad thing given that they're supposed to be a Demon Engine heavy company. So the current stratagem, 1 CP, it'll allow you to shoot blast weapons in engagement range, and you get a +1 to hit on those attacks hit rolls, and that's specifically for Poxmongers Demon Engine units, just 1. So realistically, you would use that if your Plague Burst Crawler or Blight Hauler that wants to use a frag missile has been wrapped up in engagement range and you're going to be shooting with them and want to get the most out of it. Now, to me, I never find myself wanting to use the frag missile on the Blight Hauler, really, and I wouldn't want to spend a CP just to do that when I can just shoot a crack missile and it'd be fine anyway. There are going to be some enemies where it's like, no, a frag missile is going to be perfect here, so it is nice to have that sort of thing for that scenario, but I don't think you'd really miss it if it was gone. Same goes for the Plague Burst Crawler. If you're getting tied up with your Plague Burst Crawler, something's gone wrong. And yes, it's nice to have a get out of jail free card, but I don't think necessarily taking that, positioning move, whatever your opponent did to get in that position, I don't think taking that off them by just suddenly being able to use your mortar in engagement range is necessarily a great thing for the game, but I don't disagree with it as a whole as a stratagem. But I think if I was going to change that, what I would do is make it so that your demon engines that can shoot out of line of sight can shoot out of line of sight with a +1. So they essentially ignore the -1 that you would get from the barrage rule. So the opponent's still going to get the additional cover, so you are still essentially losing a pip of AP, but you will get to hit on whatever the current profile of the Plague Burst Crawler would be for out of line of sight. Now, the reason for me thinking that is because if you look at the Guard, the concept being that they are trained to use their mortars, they are trained to use their long-range artillery, and therefore they're not penalised for trying to do that because that's exactly the job they came to do, rather than wanting to shoot directly at the opponent and, firing over the top just because that might work. The same is really true of the Plague Burst Mortar. It's not a gun that's positioned in any way to fire directly at the enemy. It is a mortar, it is a looping shot. So it stands to reason that the Poxmongers would be capable of firing that mortar in a way that isn't detrimented by needing to be a looping shot. So I don't think that's a rule that should apply just to the Plague Burst Crawler for the mortar itself, but rather a stratagem that the Poxmongers can use that will affect all of the Plague Burst Crawlers that they might bring. Now, that might sound a bit broken if you think, well, yeah, you can run 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, but they are only D6 shots, and sometimes you're going to flub that and only get a handful across even a full squadron of Plague Burst Crawlers. And at the end of the day, that is the Poxmongers shtick. That is what they're going to come to do, bring the demon engines. So I don't think they need to be punished for that. But feel free to disagree. As far as the Sanghus Flux, it just seems like a really weird thing to line up. The name Sanghus Flux would suggest some kind of blood disorder. And given that this is a mechanized force, it almost feels like these guys should have Ferric Blight, and the other, the second plague company should maybe have Sanghus Flux, in terms of name, if nothing else. Now the effect here is -1 leadership from models in the unit that's in range, and -1 from the combat attrition tests taken for that enemy unit. One really easy fix for that, given that so many factions just ignore combat attrition, would just be that changing the words to the enemy fails on an unmodified 1 or an unmodified 2. So they do take it because it's not a modifier, it's just a change to the roll specifically. Or the result of the roll would be a fail. So that would be fine, but I think we could probably make it a little bit more sort of blood disorder related. The way I was thinking about it would be if an enemy model is killed by a plague weapon in contagion range, which is already like a reasonable amount to set up besides melee. If an enemy model is killed, roll a d6, and we could either make it a d6 for every model in the squad, and a 6 is a mortal wound, which, you know, it is going to punish horde units, but at the end of the day, we can punish horde units pretty well anyway, so it's not like we were going to struggle with them. And then on the other hand, you could just make it roll 1d6, and on a 3-up, they take a mortal wound, or on a 3-up, they take d3 mortal wounds. Just so it's like, well, we've killed a unit, their blood is poison, their blood has got onto their allies because they kind of exploded from how hard they were smashed, and as a result of that, the infection is now spreading to the living members of that squad, and perhaps takes its toll, killing another model or two. I think that would be a bit more of a fitting rule for the name Sanghus Flux, particularly when the wording here, bleeding sores erupt all over the enemy afflicted by the Sanghus Flux, the wounds never clotting or healing. So to me, that sounds like damage rather than leadership, but again, it is what it is. If we were sticking with the leadership and combat attrition, I think just changing it to be 1 and 2's unmodified fail would be enough. At that point, it would at least be reasonable to take Sanghus Flux, but otherwise, I just don't think you'd run it. And then the Iron Clock Furnace, this is the single specific reason why I wanted to make these videos. It's a really, really easy change. So the current relic, Poxmongers model only, Iron Clock Furnace, in the command phase, select one friendly Poxmongers Demon Engine unit within 6, until the start of the next command phase, it has a 4-up invul. I think we can make that a fair bit stronger without it being broken. I think we can make that just within 6, not in the command phase, just Demon Engines within 6, because how often, besides turn 1, do you stack up all of your Demon Engines in one 12-inch circle? Do you know what I mean? Like, that, you're not going to do that, or you're just not going to be able to shoot most of the enemy's force, and so you're going to spread them out. Realistically, even if it was everything within 6, Demon Engine-wise, you're probably still going to spread out your Demon Engine. So I don't think it's broken that it would become everything within 6 rather than select one within 6. And then rather than give them an invuln save of a 4-up, let's give them a demon save of a 4-up. They are Demon Engines, so why not? There's no clash law-wise there. They are demons. The save that they have normally is actually referred to as a demon save. Let me turn to the exact page, but at the end of the day, they've printed over their own rules here. Yeah, the rule is demonic. This model has a 5-up invuln. So let's get that changed straight away to, it's a demonic save. They've got a 5-up demon save because they're a demon engine, and the Iron Clock Furnace makes that a 4-up demon save, so it can't be ignored by railguns, which I think all of a sudden makes the Poxmongers a fantastic pick. It's not always going to be a thing. It's not every model in the list. It's just your demon engines, but it really emphasizes that the Poxmongers are all about those demon engines, and at the end of the day, they are demons. So why could they not have a demon save? And I also think that that's something that Mortarion should get as well. One really easy way to stop Mortarion being a victim of those railguns is just to make his 4-up invuln a 4-up demon save. Against most armies, it's functionally the same thing, but he's also got armor on top, so he's got that 3-up save with armor of contempt against low AP, but he just doesn't get insta-wrecked by railguns. I think that same logic is fine applied to the demon engines here, and you could keep it as just select one unit within 6 in the command phase, But I think, as I say, the fact that you're just very rarely going to keep them all stacked up on top of this character, you're going to send them off to get lines of sight and the drones out to go and reap on you, merry Reaper Man, with their Plague Mower. So again, I just don't think it's too strong if it's just everything within 6, and it is a 4-up demon save. Well, that's it for the Poxmongers. Let me know what you think. Would you change anything else yourself? Do you disagree with my changes? I mean, Games Workshop surely will, so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts if nothing else. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time in the Underhive.